A question I asked myself before I was pregnant with twins was, how do you know that you're pregnant with twins? Like, what are the signs and symptoms around twin pregnancy? And so now I am pregnant with twins. I thought it would be a good chance for me to share what I figured out with you guys. So I found out I was pregnant about 2 weeks after my missed period, and then found out that I was pregnant with twins at my 12-week ultrasound. Before I tested for pregnancy, I did have a feeling that I was pregnant. I have been pregnant once before. So a week before my period in my cycle where I found out that I was pregnant with twins, I felt quite normal. I felt as though maybe my period had just finished. I didn't feel bloated. I didn't feel moody. I didn't feel any of those things. So I don't know if that is because I have kind of figured out my body a lot. I'm quite in tune with my body. I would suggest, if you are not pregnant yet, or if you are not trying yet, maybe you don't have any children, I would suggest getting to know yourself and your body. I think that really helps to have an idea of what's going on, and not only as it relates to pregnancy, but just as it relates to your general health. You know, having an idea of how things normally are helps you to identify when things aren't as they normally are, and might help you to be able to identify and catch things quite early. So I use the Nausea app. I'll put it here. There's one for pregnancy, but there's also one for tracking periods, and I initially began using the one for tracking periods. So before I tested, I did feel like I was pregnant. I wasn't symptom tracking or anything like that. I just knew that at that time of the month I usually feel this way, and I wasn't feeling this way this month, so there had to be something different. I did wait until I think maybe a couple of days after my missed period. I did then start thinking, okay, maybe I'm definitely pregnant. So I did wait about a week and a half before getting a pregnancy test. All throughout that time I was experiencing tiredness and bloating, which bloating is a symptom that I usually have before my periods as well. But of course, when my period comes, it then eases. So after my period date had passed and I was still feeling quite bloated around my stomach, and the lower part of my stomach started to feel a bit tender to touch, and I was just feeling really tired. I was pretty certain. I took the test, and my test was extremely positive. So I still have it. So you can see that the control line is fainter than the pregnancy line. After I got this line, I thought, okay, yeah, you're really pregnant. So I peed in my little cup, and I put the stick in the cup, and I looked at it to see what it was doing. And before I kind of looked at it for about 10 seconds, I'd say maybe 5 seconds before, you know, wanting to turn it over and wait. And before I could turn it over, the line was already there. So I would say that that's probably a sign and symptom as well. Like if you get an extremely positive test, a very, very dark line, so if your hormone levels are pretty high, that can be an indication of having twins. I also mentioned, I think it was in my Finding Out I'm Pregnant video, which I will link here if you guys want to check that out. I did start to have heightened smell around the time that I tested, so maybe a week after my missed period. After I took this pregnancy test, I did start to do a bit of research about heightened hormones during pregnancy, because between weeks 6 and 8 I had every single symptom that I've read that is possible to have whilst you're pregnant. I've had headaches, migraines, you know, especially around this part of my head. I was having migraines a lot here. Fatigue, lethargy, like it was really difficult for me to get anything done between the time I found out that I was pregnant and the time that I found out that I was having twins. I was essentially like in my bed all of the time, unsettled sleep, insomnia, having periods of time when I'm up at night and I just can't get back to sleep, frequent urination, getting up to use the bathroom 5, 6, 7 times a night, food aversions, not being able to eat spicy food, not being able to tolerate actually anything really. And I know that there are singleton pregnancies that do have really extreme symptoms as well. So in some ways it's really just dependent on the individual. There are people who experience really bad morning sickness and HG where they're like vomiting and can't keep down water and these kind of things, and it's just a singleton pregnancy. But I would say that generally having really heightened morning sickness symptoms is a symptom of twin pregnancy. For me, it was a bit easier to differentiate because I already have a child, so I've already been pregnant before, so I had kind of something to compare it to. I guess if you're not in that situation, then if you are familiar with your body, that it also makes that a bit easier as well, because you can kind of like gauge, okay, this is how I normally feel, so I feel much worse than this, or I just feel a little bit worse. I do also know that there are some twin pregnancies where the mum doesn't really experience much morning sickness, so there are always exceptions, of course, to the rule, but I would say that the general rule is that if you're experiencing heightened symptoms and heightened hormones during the early stages of your pregnancy, that could be an indication or sign and symptom of twin pregnancy. I was eventually prescribed, I think at about 8 weeks, some medication to assist with my nausea, because I was getting nausea not only in the day, but also throughout the night, 24/7. My morning sickness with these twins was really, really relentless, and I definitely felt as though there was something going on. And I have heard of twin mums mentioning the feeling, you know, the feeling that you just get, that you just know. I had that feeling when I tested positive and I saw the line. I did think to myself, I think it's twins. And at about 9 weeks, I did feel a couple of flutters in the lower part of my stomach, and I had a conversation with my mum where I told her I think it's twins. And she told me, no, it's probably just gas. And I explained to her that it's, you know, I don't think it's gas, I think it's twins. Also, I explained in my Finding Out I'm Pregnant video that my husband and I have had like a running joke throughout our relationship. We've been together for a very long time about having twins and having nicknames for these twins. So I think that your intuition is something to also listen to. And the older I get, the more I realize that actually your intuition is actually a thing, and getting to know yourself can help you be in tune with your intuition. I know it's not something that everybody believes in, and I don't think it's about, I don't know, seeing into the future or being psychic or any of those kind of things. But sometimes you kind of know. You don't know why you know, but you know. And I spent a lot of time prior to my ultrasound feeling like I knew that there was two. And also I use the Bump app, and the Bump app gives updates for singleton baby, but they also have updates if you're expecting twins. There's a link that you can click and it will say, oh, you see here if you're expecting twins. And for the whole time between me finding out at week 6 and me having my ultrasound at week 12, I was reading twin updates. I was so proud of myself when I found out that they were actually twins, because I felt like that it was something that I really knew. I was confident in the fact that it was twins or there was a problem. And I was just hoping that it was the former. So the main signs and symptoms that I had that indicated to me that I was having twins were just extreme morning sickness symptoms, but feeling extremely nauseous, everything just feeling a bit extreme. So feeling fatigue, but feeling extreme fatigue, feeling lethargic, but feeling extremely lethargic, having migraines, but having like for me, my migraines were quite intense. They were not consistent, but when they came, they were quite intense. My tiredness, sleeping for most of the day, or at least finishing the work day and just going straight to sleep and waking up the next day. Not really feeling motivated to get out of bed. And of course, also genetics, right? These are things that we don't really have control over. If you come from a family, you or your partner come from a family where twins have happened, then your chances of having a twin pregnancy increases. For me, my grandmother had twins, but outside of that, my twins will be the only set of twins, and I have loads of aunties and uncles. It wasn't really a surprise for us, but apparently twins can sometimes skip a generation. And I'm not 100% sure at this moment if my twins are fraternal or identical. Do make sure you subscribe if you'd like to find that out. But I do know that if your twins are not identical, then you would have released 2 eggs, which is something that happens to women that is based on genetics. So the ability to release 2 eggs at the same time. So for example, if you have a grandma or a mum who's had twins and then you're feeling extreme morning sickness symptoms, and you also have the feeling, then you might be onto something there. I know that it is possible to get early scanning. I've never been scanned early, and of course it would depend on where you are in the world, but I think in some places it is possible to kind of request an early scan, but that's not something I did. But I hope this video is helpful for any of you guys trying to figure out how you even know that you're pregnant with twins, you know, outside of having an ultrasound and seeing them. How do you know? These are the ways that I kind of figured out. Thank you so much for watching this video, and if you liked it, please don't forget to subscribe and like the video, and I will see you in my next one. Bye.